I'm your host, Effie Pilarinu, and today I am joined by a wonderful female entrepreneur from Brazil. I'd like to welcome Daniela Binatti. Welcome, Daniela. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
You are breaking all stereotypes, I think. We just celebrated, Women's International Day. In the US, this is Women's History Day. We're talking about gender equality and the stereotypes. You are a fintech entrepreneur, but it's not only that, it's the fact that you founded Pismo, a fintech, and we'll have the opportunity to talk about that with your husband, your sister, and your ex-boss. That is not a common thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that kind of experience? And also where you're focused, it's core banking, right? The fintech in core banking, a digitally native core banking system, correct?
Yes, yes. Actually, well, everybody asks about this thing about like building a company with my sister and my husband, but in fact, like I met my husband working like 27 years ago. So it's not that we were a family that decided to build a company. We've been working together for more than 20 years, actually the four of us. So I started my career as a software engineer. I have all technical background. I met my husband, my current husband, like I think I was his intern like 27 years ago. And then we started dating after I left the place where we met. And we were together building another payments processing platform in Brazil back in 1999. And then after a couple of years working there, Julie, my younger sister, joined us also to spend some time. Although the three of us have technical background, we were in slightly different positions. So Marcelo, still today, he's on the engineering side. I'm more on the architecture side, and Julie ended up in product. After spending 16 years in the previous company where we built this payments processing platform, I decided to leave because I had two girls. By the time they were 6 and 4 years old, and my life was kind of a nightmare because I was in charge of the whole infrastructure of the company in a moment in time where there was no cloud computing available. So I was taking care of physical on-prem data centers. I decided to leave to look for something that would give me more time to be with the girls. They were in a moment in time where they needed me. I came back to the training room to study cloud computing, big data. But then I realized that with all the technology available in the world, I would be like, I couldn't build another processing platform and solve all the problems that we couldn't address in the past. So we spent like 1 year working, and I started convincing them to join me because I used to say that we are a very
This
privileged
is
group.
what year are you talking now? When did
I, I,
this hit?
Yeah, it was around 2015. The conversations were in 2015, where we spent like almost 1 year at the dining room of Julie's apartment, just writing down from each perspective what kind of problems we had in the past and how we could solve with the technology available in the new venture. So then we built an MVP, the first version of the platform in early 16. And late 16, we raised the first seed round led by Red Point Ventures. And then we started, like, and here we are, like it's been 8 years already.
What were there arguments around, too many problems and, whose problem you're going to solve, or were there overlapping? Because I assume there were many needs and problems to solve, but was there sort of a common theme that really led to the decision to what you actually focused on? And what was that?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, there were, like, as I said, like we were looking from different perspectives. So, like when we were looking from like the infrastructure perspective, usually when you have payments processing or core banking, you have to, if you are working on physical data centers, you have to be limited, like in trying to hold the peak day of transactions, pay for idle infrastructure until you have something happening in production. So migrating to a cloud native solution would give us the possibility of auto scaling the infrastructure and only paying for what we were using. This was one of the things, like those batching processes. So it's something that most of the systems in the financial services industry were built 66 years ago, and they were built in a time where we didn't have enough storage capacity or even bandwidth for networking. So until today, if you look to some of your banking statements, sometimes you look at one transaction on your credit card and you're not even sure where you make that purchase because they are so small codes talking about one specific establishments. And why is that? Because when you look to MasterCard and Visa and in the credit card networks, they are still running on top of ISO 8583, which is a protocol. The last version was issued in 1987. So we used to say that the first time we built the platform, we were kind of using newest technology to build that. But then at Pismo, the idea was, how can we reinvent the things and build something that's going to be the next generation of payments and banking infrastructure? So we got rid of batching systems. We only use granular APIs, and we built many tools around to make those batching file conversions and actually transforming the system to a technology that it was already available in other industries like Netflix and Spotify, Amazon, and other big tech companies. And also, from the product perspective, they came to the point where they need to decide between building versus buying a processing solution. If they decide to build, they have to keep internally like resources that know about the rails and how to manage them, credit card network mandates, regulatory and other stuff, which is a hurdle, something to manage. But if they decide to buy, usually they are attached roadmap to the product roadmap of that company. There's no differentiation among other banks or other financial institutions that are using that specific product. So what we did was we built a platform that is a set of microservices deployed all on top of AWS, so a cloud native system that can provide cards processing, core banking, lending, and some other products using the same set of APIs. So what we provide to the clients is we give them a toolkit so they can be in control of the product roadmap. They can just orchestrate the APIs to build the product that they want to the end user.
This technology is used by incumbents too.
Both, actually both. We have big clients already running production, some like public cases like Itaú here in Latin America, who are migrating the whole credit card portfolio to our platform. But we also have fintechs running and also the stock exchange here in Brazil. So exactly because you pay, it's a SaaS company, you pay per what you use, so it's just a set of APIs that you can call. So it's pretty much like when you look to the same way that like you can consume infrastructure services from the cloud providers, you can, like we are the infrastructure for financial services.
And connect your sort of growth or rather the evolution of the company with PIX and how it connects with that evolution and what it has enabled in the market.
Yeah, this was one of the things that we decided to do differently. And then I think it's one of the reasons why we succeeded in this scenario was because like we built a very basic components where you can store the ledger and the balance, you can move money, you can identify one client, whether if it's a credit card, a token, social security number, whatever, you want to move money from one place to the other, we have the ledger and the processing platform for that. So for us, it was just a matter of migration. Some of the clients are still using debit cards, credit cards, prepaid cards. Some of them are moving money using PIX. So we have all the instrumentation in the toolkit to connect with the rails of the central bank in Brazil, UPI in India, or every other way of moving money. We have the tools to make that connection possible to connect to the rails.
And now you recently, I understand you've been acquired by Visa. What does that mean, practice? And how is it changing the nature of your business? Is it making it more global? Is it, what is it doing? Is it
Yeah,
stretching you? Is it augmenting you? Can you give us a bit of understanding?
sure. It's been 1 year already, like 1 year and 2 months, I think the acquisition was completed. And one of the reasons why we decided to pursue this conversation, we were already working in international expansion. By the time we signed the deal, we already had operations and offices in the UK, in Singapore, and Brazil, Austin, Texas, and most recently in India. But it's very hard when you are targeting big incumbents and you want to provide core banking systems. Like we were a small company pretty much that started in Brazil. So one of the reasons why we decided to pursue the conversation was having institution like Visa backing us on the background. It's something that could help us with the conversations with the big guys and the big banks. So far, we keep as an agnostic company, a separate unit, especially because we're still processing MasterCard and other payment means. But yeah, so far it's been great.
And is the focus on sort of cross-border or trade highways with Brazil and the rest of the world, or you're serving
It
clients that,
have nothing to do with Brazil. Like we have clients in many different places. And one of the things that it's really good for a cloud native solution like this, because there's lot of regulations around data localization and how we can move PII data from clients from one place to the other. So we can deploy the solution pretty much everywhere in the world where there's an AWS region available. So like everything is automated, infrastructure as code. So if we get a client in Europe where we need to get and to follow GDPR things or LGPD in Brazil or many other local regulations, we are able to deploy a solution in that place using the same source code that we use all over the globe. So it doesn't matter where they are. We just set a solution locally when we need to attend those clients.
and Daniela, I mean, you've obviously spent your life in payments, I guess, right? You are deeply entrenched and you've seen the evolution from the different cycles, the cloud and the mobile and all the changes that you've seen and you continue to see. What is your vision, or what do you think is ahead of us? You think that we'll have major changes in this area, or do we just have to continue? Because obviously there's a lot of institutions that are not yet digitally transformed, and obviously you're helping them do that. But is there something bigger that you expect in the industry, different?
I don't think so. And like there's a lot that we could explore that some companies are already exploring in AI space and other stuff where we can make things better. But I really think that getting rid of those legacy systems, it's going to be like essential for us to be able to leverage the new technology available. I think the way that the incumbents they chose to cope with the transformation over the last years were kind of building layers of systems on top of the legacy ones, which becomes almost impossible to manage. And I think that's where they are getting hurt now. And so while they don't look at the very core and transform the legacy systems in a way where they can have enough data, granular data, and streaming in real time and have online information to explore, I think it's going to be extremely hard to leverage the newest technologies that everybody's talking about. Like some of the conversations that we are having now, like if you look, for example, to the US or many other places, there's still a lot of batching systems happening. You make just a transfer using your current account, and sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days for you to see that like reflecting in your statement. And we have many other mechanisms here in Brazil, for example, where we can see in real time. So I think there's a lot to do still on the back end to make sure we we can be up to speed to leverage all the technologies available. It's going to be extremely hard to explore information without getting rid of them.
Because at the end of the day, I think that as you say, if financial services companies that are seasoned don't get their data architecture in place and get rid of all this legacy, the band-aids, I like to think of them as multiple band-aids,
Exactly.
then there's no way that they can take advantage of the next generation. And we're going to have, new companies coming in and starting from scratch, and they just won't be able to compete on the unit economics and on the customer service, but mainly on the unit economics, because they just won't be able to do this business. And it seems to
Exactly.
the time has come. I don't know that there's any other sort of time to, wait and think about it and just continue to do things as usual. And I hope that this is the case, and that you will be seeing more of that in the market. Daniela, I want to go back to your personal story because it's an inspiring story. You come from a very humble upbringing. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how it shaped you and how that has, is it an inspiration for you? Is it something that you leverage and mentor other women in the space?
Yeah, that actually it's a kind of an interesting story because like we come from a very humble family, as you said. Like our parents, they played the fields, studied only until 9 years old, then came to São Paulo to work here. And so since we were like kids, my mom said that we should pursue a good job, especially in a bank. And so when I was 16 years old, he made me print like many resumes, like with pretty much my name in my phone, and to go to a place here, the financial district here in Sao Paulo, and give door to door delivering my resume in every bank. So we spent most of our careers working in full-time jobs in other companies. And when I decided to leave, we were not educated to be entrepreneurs. And so this is something that my mom couldn't understand. So she was like, you are unemployed. Like, what the hell are you doing? You have two girls. Why are you doing that? And then can you imagine when Julie, my sister, joined me, when Marcelo decided to leave his current job to also join? So we were all in. And it was something that we believed so badly in what we were doing that like I've been always a very competitive person, and I said like I am sure that someone is doing this, and it's going to be extremely frustrating if at some point like I cannot give up because this is happening, whether if it's me doing or other people, this is going to happen. So it was hard. Like we worked for 15 years as executives, and then we like invested until the last penny in the bank. So I sold my car to keep paying for school, and I was already considering selling my apartment when we raised the Series B fundraising round, and things were kind of, we could at least have some help to keep paying for the bills. So it was hard, like until the time where we decided, even by the time we decided to sell the company, I told my mom, we are considering selling the company. And like, after like months of negotiation, and my mom said, and what are you doing after that? Are you going to be unemployed? And I said, no, mom, I can look for another job or I can keep working at the company. So it was a very interesting thing. It was not easy, like lots of up and downs along the road, but I think I learned a lot, and also my girls, I think they also learned a lot by observing everything that we were going through. It was a very exciting journey.
This is a great example of, it's not like, oh, one is born as an entrepreneur, or of course, if you come from a family of entrepreneurs, that's another thing. I think it's like, similarly, if you come from a family of musicians, you most probably will be playing some music organ, whether you go and do it professionally or not. But I think that it's like what life presents you and how you go about it, which is not something predictable. I imagine that it's not like you were thinking of it or planning ahead when you started. Meaning, I'll have 10 years of a conventional career and reach a certain level, and then I will step out and do my own thing. I don't know that many people do that, right?
Yeah, definitely was not what I was thinking. But yeah, thank God was a happy story, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. Daniela, before we close, I want to ask you about the general fintech, if you want, atmosphere and sentiment in Brazil, because as outsiders, of course, we look at, the big success story of Nubank as it is a publicly traded and hyperscaler company with major impact. We also admire and discuss a lot about DPIs, the digital public infrastructure in Brazil and in India, as great examples of the network effects. But obviously, it's not all beautiful and easy in the inside. How can you give us a picture of, sort of maybe are there two extremes there? You have all these successes, but you have all these failures or challenges, difficulties. Give us a sense, a reality check.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges, especially because of the moment where we are living now. I think when we started Pismo, and even when we look at to the clients that were coming to us, we had like lots of fintechs, digital wallets, and many companies trying, because it was a moment in time where venture capital was like extremely available from, and many other like international funds trying to invest in the region. But what we could observe along the way was like when the market started shifting a little bit, there was like we started seeing like concentration, and some few players could keep coping with the new scenario and the new situation. Some of them were bankrupting or even being acquired by the biggest ones. So it was first lots of capillarity, many companies trying to do the same thing, but it's very hard. The competition is too hard. Some of them like ended up like bankrupting, and others like being acquired. So I think most recently there was a move of consolidation in some of them, and especially because the incumbents are also moving towards modernization. You see like Itaú announcing that are shutting down all the data centers, moving to cloud in 5 years. So there's a lot of movements around that. So as also transform on their side and are able to compete with the challengers, things are harder for the ones who are trying to start. So I think things changed, but pretty much because of the venture capital scenario. That's what we've been seeing here.
So once the capital dried, both on the private side and on the public markets, that created a big change in the market. And
Yeah,
you say some incumbents in other jurisdictions too have caught up partially, and some have leapfrogged too, because some fintechs, their business model wasn't there in terms of profitability.
yeah,
So although they were offering a better, faster, cheaper service, the business model was not clear, so they couldn't
yeah,
really survive in the long run. And that is a challenge in this
yeah,
market. Daniela,
exactly.
you wanted to add something?
No, I was just adding that the same applies to the ones providing infrastructure as we are, because there were some companies providing payments processing for fintechs, and when those companies are not there anymore, the providers are also in trouble. So that's like one of the things that we decided since the very beginning, and that's why we started with Itaú. We are still providing services to startups and smaller companies, but we keep looking to deploy in dozens of countries corporate banking. So as we move and the providers are also serving the incumbents, I think this is one of the ways to kind of surviving in difficult times.
Yeah, I can imagine. Daniela, before closing, first of all, I want to thank you and I want to ask you any words of wisdom you want to share with our audience around this time of the entrepreneurship challenges ahead of us. Of course, we have the classic ones, the timely ones, but is there something specific that you want to share at this time?
Yeah, I think that success is overrated. This is one of the things that I keep saying. Like everybody looks at the stories that are on the cover of the magazines, but things are really difficult, which doesn't mean it can't be possible. So especially for the women in this month, I would say that the most difficult challenges to overcome are the ones we create in our own minds. So we should also be looking and be aware that we are capable of doing hard things, and just keep looking and keep talking and be inspired by other stuff, but know that things are not easy.
Because as you said, we look at the outcome and we think that it's easy and we celebrate, but we don't know how people got there. Daniela,
Yes,
thank you so much for your time.
thank you.